Joining us now from Houston, Texas, and continuing our 2012 one-on-one series is Republican Congressman and presidential candidate Ron Paul. Congressman, welcome back to Fox News Sunday, sir.
Thank you, Chris. Good to be with you.
You just heard Director Fugate talk about all of the things that FEMA is doing to help people in the path of Irene. But you talked a couple of days ago about that we should do things the way we did all the way back in 1900. Let's take a look at what you said.
FEMA is not a good friend of most people in Texas because all they do is come in and tell you what to do and can't do. You can't get in your houses, and they hinder the local people, and they hinder volunteers from going in. So there's no magic about FEMA.
Congressman, you would really, at this point, do away with FEMA and all the things it's doing to help hundreds of thousands of people along the East Coast?
Have you ever read the reports that came out of New Orleans and all those wonderful things they did, giving checks to people who didn't even live there, sending in hundreds of millions of dollars worth of trailers that they had to junk because they didn't meet FEMA standards? No, it's a system of bureaucratic central economic planning, which is a policy that is deeply flawed. So no, you don't get rid of something like that in one day. Matter of fact, I've had this position for a long time, and the people kept reelecting me, and I have a coastal district. But I've also suggested that there's different ways to finance this, too, because actually FEMA is in big trouble financially. Their flood program is about $20 billion in debt. So it's deeply flawed. But even back then when I refused to vote for the bailout money, because we didn't have any money. I mean, this idea that government could just bail out everybody and vote for money. But I proposed that we save $1 billion from the overseas warmongering, bring half that home, put it against the deficit, and yes, tide people over until we come to our senses and realize that FEMA has been around since 1978. It has one of the worst reputations for a bureaucracy ever. I win elections because I fight for the constituents to overcome the bureaucracy. You can't imagine how many calls we get because FEMA's getting in the way and they can't get their checks, they can't get their bailout. Then these checks go to, contractors. And the contractors and the people don't end up with the money. The contractors end up with the money, sometimes in no-bid contracts. So it is anybody who wants to defend this department and this agency, they have a tough argument to argue for.
So briefly, Congressman, I assume that if the administration comes, because as we say, FEMA's running out of money, it's the end of the fiscal year, and they may have a lot of costs right now. I assume if the Obama administration comes and asks for an emergency funding bill for FEMA, you're a definite, you're a definite no.
Well, where would the money come from? We don't have any money. What are you going to do? Go hat in hand to China and borrow the money? But I would consider what I just said because I have precise beliefs in what we should do, and I want to transition out of this dependency on the federal government. But I would say, yes, Obama, you want $1 billion? Cut $2 billion, quit that war in Libya that is undeclared and unconstitutional. Bring those troops home, save $2 billion, put $1 billion against the deficit, and yes, tide our people over. I mean, we've been conditioned our people that FEMA will take care of us and everything will be okay. But you try to make these programs work the best you can, but you can't just keep saying, oh, they need money. Well, we're out of money. This country is bankrupt. So this idea that the bleeding heart will say, well, we have to take care of them. I mean, the whole idea of FEMA is a gross distortion of insurance. Matter of fact, FEMA creates many of our problems because they sell the insurance because you can't buy it from a private company, which means there's a lot of danger. So we pay people to build on beaches, and then you have to go and rescue them. So it's so far removed from the market and the understanding of what insurance should be about. Insurance should measure risk. It shouldn't be a bailout program endlessly and encourage people to make mistakes. And that's what we continuously do in the flood-prone areas.
Congressman, and you've expressed them here, your libertarian views are certainly somewhat unconventional, but they have picked up growing support in this race. And let's take a look at the numbers if we can. The latest Gallup poll shows you in third place in the GOP presidential race with 13% behind Perry and Romney, but ahead of Bachmann and all the other candidates. And in a matchup with President Obama, you're now basically even at 47% to 45%. Question, what's going on here? Why are you gaining such traction this year?
Well, because it's a good idea, and it's the American ideal. But I'm fascinated with your word unconventional. Isn't it strange that we can apply that term to freedom and liberty and the Constitution, limited government, and a balanced budget? You're proposing this unconventional idea of government. Well, I think you're right about it. Today, under today's circumstances, it has been unconventional probably for about 50 years. But right now, the Tea Party movement and the independents in this country and the people who are caring about our bankruptcy, they think that what we've had is unconventional with regards to our Constitution and the principles of liberty. So yes, people are waking up and they're saying, yeah, Ron Paul's right. Why are we fighting all these undeclared war? And why do we have a Federal Reserve that bails out the rich and dumps on the poor? And why is it that deficits don't really matter and politicians just stand around and talk that they're going to nibble away at a budget deficit that's 10 years out? So, no, this is a very popular philosophy, and it's not my philosophy. It's the philosophy of the Constitution. It's the philosophy of liberty, private property rights, and not dependency on government. That is the big thing. People are supposed to assume some responsibility for themselves in a free society.
Congressman, I want to explore what your goal is in this campaign, and I want to read from an interesting profile of you in the latest issue of Time magazine. Let's put it up on the screen. As presidential contender, Paul remains an extreme long shot, but as prophet, he is still defining the GOP race. Paul's allies say he's more interested in influence than political power. He does not have a great personal desire to be the president, says Jesse Benton, Paul's campaign manager. My question is, are you in this to win it, or is it enough for you just to shape the debate?
Yes, I'm in it to win it, and you're absolutely right. I do say that I'm more interested in influence and power. Matter of fact, as president, I would reduce the power of government. I wouldn't seek it. I would never take the power from the Congress. I would not go to war without congressional approval. So, yeah, I resent the power that has galvanized in the executive branch, in the judicial system, and I would want to shrink the size of government. So that is exactly right. But that doesn't mean I don't want to win. It means I want a new approach, at least from current standards, for the presidency. I want to obey the Constitution and follow its very great restrictions on the government. The Constitution was written to restrict the government, not to restrict the people. Now it's turned around. We use government to restrict the people in all manners. So I would like to reverse that.
Let's turn to foreign policy, which you've addressed a couple of times already in this conversation. While most people celebrated the toppling of Libyan leader Gaddafi this week, you